Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at that radar map here, the temperatures, the convective outlook, some thunderstorms possible again on that Wednesday here. Didn't have, just overwhelming coverage on that Tuesday, but as I show you here in the computer source for those last 12 hours in terms of rain, some spots definitely did get some precipitation and some storming. There's no warnings locally or anything like that, but the current radar here does show a few scattered showers, but not too big of a deal in toward our region. You see the temperatures here as we're looking pretty warm though. I mean, we still have some 80s here on the board, at 2 in the morning, which is when we're doing this if you're not watching live. So, I mean, just crazy, in terms of the warmer air here. As we're telling that story, I mean, that is really, really impressive as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. That's, how it is a lot of times here this time of year, give or take. I know you can just kind of see here, at least though we're not dealing with a tropical system or anything like that. I know there's been a lot of hype on social media about tropical storm Erin, and quite honestly, not really concerned for our area except for maybe some rip currents and or just the waves being higher as we get toward next week. But locally, really not concerned about that. Now, in a couple weeks, there might be something else there that kind of is behind Erin there that we might have to watch. So, maybe the F name, the G name on the list, something like that. That could be a couple weeks away based on some guidance, but not really concerned at all locally about Erin. Even for the rest of the eastern seaboard, not overly concerned, maybe more so than our area here. I just hitting the right pattern for our area to get hit in, what we're dealing with right now. But further north, we'll, want to watch it a little bit more closely. But again, right now, it's looking like more of a recurvature before it gets toward the continental U.S. But, there's still time to watch it. Can't let our guard down just in case. We've got a lot of storms that have, somewhat look like that, and then they don't recur. Now, this is the pattern here. It looks to me the model guidance more in line. Looking like things will be, a little bit easier with this forecast in terms of staying away. But you never know. I mean, we've seen a lot over the years. I mean, I remember Florence going back several years ago. That definitely looked like a storm where it was in a spot in the Atlantic that it would recur in a very odd pattern set up. But it hit the Carolinas there so badly. So you never know. You just gotta be watchful. You just gotta be mindful here, just in case, vigilant there, obviously. But again, as we're looking here, temperature-wise, again, warm. You see some scattered showers. I mean, thunderstorms possible again. There's a heat advisory today. Another noteworthy fact is 20 years, from now, coming up, 20 years yesterday, as we're, looking into the future here, is going to be a total solar eclipse toward a lot of our covered area, including Stark. So, circle that date on that calendar here if you can. Hope the weather cooperates. It'll be summertime then too. And that'll be on Saturday, August 12th, 2045. I know we're looking way into the future, but a total solar eclipse here, assuming the weather cooperates, to be visible across a lot of the covered area. I mean, as you get down toward like Gainesville and that region there, I mean, even more so than Stark. I mean, the time frame will be even longer, assuming, the clouds move out of the way. But that's 20 years from now. We, have, a lot of time, a lot of time here to be thinking about that. As we're looking toward 2045, that'll be something here that will be a storyline, obviously, that'll get discussed here in toward the future Tallahassee, to be visible there, assuming the weather cooperates. So that's 20 years from now, something to look forward to, 20 years, from now, yesterday. So that countdown continues. But as we go ahead and, look at this, again, it's total solar eclipse we saw last year, saw in 2017 other parts of the country were now here, though, we didn't have the full effect. We will in 2045. So there'll be a lot of tourists coming to town, but that's a long, long, long way away. Okay, so I think that's enough for something that's 20 years from now, but that'll be there, obviously, when you have the moon get in front of the sun. You'll have that, special effect there where you even have to have solar eclipse classes on there for a short period of time. So as we're looking here, as we're tracking things, again, not too much on the current radar picture. I know there's been a lot of flooding in southern Tennessee and northern parts there of Georgia. You see all these rainfall totals here last 12 hours. I mean, even, more than this if you kind of go further back. I mean, they've had some big problems there in or that part of the country. I mean, these indicative 4 or 5 inches last 12 hours, but some areas have seen, over a half foot of rain even. And these aren't the areas that would drain as easy, so we even had some life-threatening flash flooding at times there in the lower parts of East Tennessee, northern Georgia, and the like there. So, not a good scenario in toward that region. We had some bad flood in Milwaukee the other night as well. Some river flooding up there as we're looking toward that part of the country. See right now even, in the middle of the night, some severe thunderstorm warnings in Ohio. It's actually moving off toward the northeast at 40 miles an hour. You see, could be ultimately getting toward Lorain, Ohio eventually. You see some, thunderstorm accent up here and some normal thunder in Cleveland. But you see here as we zoom in even tighter around New London there, around Wakeman there. Some of those areas there are potentially being impacted. I mean, probably ironically, weekend on up right now in Wakeman here, at least over the next little bit with this storm accent coming in. Some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, penny-sized hail possible. We don't see this, in Ohio that, often here, middle of the night in August. I mean, any time of year, but especially, sort of looking now, it's a little bit unusual. Not overwhelmingly unusual, but something that's worth noting. I know as we look at the national picture for today, I had on that Wednesday on the 13th here, see a marginal risk of severe weather for areas around New York City. As we're looking there, you see a little bit of wind risk, not so much a hail risk, not so much tornado risk overall. Never know, but as we look out toward the west, there's a higher wind risk there toward like Pierre, South Dakota, that area there. And then you have a risk for some hail and even some tornadic activity there in toward that green zone. A low risk, but not zero. Pierre and Mitchell, as you're looking here, even toward our area, I mean, we don't have a formal risk on that Wednesday except for the general thunderstorms. But it's worth noting here, as people getting back in that routine, your second day of school in Bradford County, for instance, there could be some nasty storms here at times. Could get a rogue warning or two, not out of the question. Rogue severe thunderstorm warning, something like that toward the evening hours, according to what some of the model guidance is saying, though. Some of the high-res models handling things great at times here. But we shall see as we look at the situation, obviously. Everybody getting back in that routine. So that's definitely something to be, noteworthy about. I mean, some areas did get right on that Tuesday here over an inch south of Ocala. Even some spots over 2 inches there. They're getting in between areas like Shady and Bellevue. And then, as you look here toward parts of Clay County, I mean, Star didn't get it, but North of Penny Farm is over 2 inches. It's localized downpours here. Even stronger storms at times, kind of in that storyline. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things, I know not going to have a full update late Thursday or late Friday. We're going to be off from that, but we'll do any break-ins as warranted and or post stuff on the necessary platforms, obviously, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. Facebook, Casey Cloud WX, Cloud Weather, Twitter, /X Cloud Casey, posting any of those local warnings here if we don't have to go on. Of course, if we need to be on, we'll be on, and we'll be on streaming on YouTube and Twitch as well. And you have the website there, cloudweather.com, all the different resources available there, interactive radar as well. As I'll go ahead and say here some other views of things. Let me go ahead and put the infrared satellite on here to make sure we have put the east mode on here so we can zoom out and I'll show you kind of, the tropical picture per se. As we look further out, you see a bunch of model guidance out here, and then you see a tropical storm, and that is Erin out there, the E-name on the list. I mean, so, that's about, we expect the E-name about this time of year, maybe a little ahead of schedule. I mean, today is the 21-year anniversary of Hurricane Charlie, ironically. 21 years since Hurricane Charlie hit there, toward southwest Florida, Punta Gorda there, and then we were across around Orlando. 21 years ago, in fact. So, that's an interesting storyline. Even had, impacts there along the coast there, getting over like Flagler County before it really went off the coast. Didn't really have too big of an impact on the storm compared to, for instance, a Gene later that season. But 21 years ago today, Hurricane Charlie, Cat 4 hurricane hitting Punta Gorda. That was a big deal. As we're looking, on this 13th here is what I'm talking about. But it was Friday the 13th. Today's Wednesday the 13th. This year's going to be a parable hurricane, it looks like, with Erin, that's, one of the reasons maybe getting a lot of hype. But You see it right now. It looks like it'll pass north of Puerto Rico. The official track in white. They have it a little closer to the hurricane center does, just to be kind of erring on the side of caution. But the guidance X is even further away from there than that. And then, these models will go past 5 days. And right now you see the tracks, the TVCN, the GFSI here, views on things. They have them, both models, have it recurving here. So that's the good news. But in a couple weeks, there may be another system, by then it might be something where it's already, really gotten its act together. Maybe is coming toward areas closer to the southeast. There's one model showing that, and maybe going to something. Sometimes we have one system kind of lead the way, the next kind of takes, path here. It might be a different type of, pattern in play here, and it's in a different spot anyway. And then you have the warm water temperatures. We shall see here. There's a lot to watch, but maybe around the 26th, 27th, we might have to be watching something closer to home. Maybe not, but it's way, way early to turn that logo red. But just throwing that out there here. But this system, Erin, does not look like a threat here locally. No, reason to hype this up locally. Some higher waves, some of that type of stuff at the coast, but that's about it. Not a local impact. I'm pretty confident saying that. We will watch, further up in case, since it's further out in the timeline, in case something shifts and it kind of pushes back toward the Carolinas or up in the Northeast somehow, Mid-Atlantic. That looks pretty unlikely right now, but it's not as unlikely as hitting Florida. I do not think Erin here in 2025, the E name on the list, is going to hit Florida. Again, I'm pretty confident about that. I was looking like 50 different views of a certain model, something like that. Like maybe one will have it come toward Florida out of 50. So very low chance is what I'm trying to say here with the Erin. Now that, there's some guidance of more than, like a 2% chance of maybe in another system. There's like the Google AI now, something new. We're looking at it along with another AI view, the European AI. Both are insisting something comes toward Florida here in a couple weeks. That's what I'm saying. Things like Ian. But again, Erin really, really does not look like a threat toward Florida. We've had so many lately. And sometimes you'll think, we don't do it too much on here, but sometimes you might say, well, maybe like Florence, so that's definitely not heading toward the Carolinas or something, the U.S., and it did several years ago. My point is, it's for once, at least for Florida and South Georgia, we need to make it clear that this is not our storm here. Maybe, some hazards there, again, the waves will be higher and the like, but this is not our storm here. Erin 2025, I'd be stunned if it got, close toward the state. Right now, if you just go by the TVC, and that's the consensus, and we'll kind of make this, make it a little closer here. I'm trying to do some measurements. I'll put that on there. As close as it might be to Jacksonville area, about 750 miles. That's way far away for anything, but just the higher waves, maybe, rip current issues, we'll see, but nothing, beyond that here, as we're looking at, as we're tracking things. So it's always good, to be able to kind of, we've had so many. We've had Irma, we've had Matthew, we've had Hermine, we've had Michael, depending on where you are in our 62 counties. Some of these worse than others. We've had, Dahlia, we've had, of course, Helene and Debbie, two Debbies, 2012, 2024 for that matter, and had so many. But this Erin, again, you've heard it on the news, kind of hyped up more than it should get hyped up. Local news I'm talking about, really. National, we still got to watch it for the East Coast a little bit more in case something happens with the pattern, in the Outer Banks and further up, they're a little closer, just in case something shifts. We've seen it like with Sandy things. One model so one thing, one also another thing. So I don't want to rule this out for areas, Mid-Atlantic, and even the Carolinas kind of included in that. Mid-Atlantic, Northeast here yet. But for Florida, South Georgia, we should be good to go from this here. I don't normally do this unless I'm confident in the pattern, allowing this to turn off and not be an issue here toward our local 62 counties. And we want to hear that. But again, season's not over by any stretch. Have the hurricane kit up to date. Some of those tax-free, items here are now tax-free all the time, not just for a few weeks in hurricane season. That just, got going here, and that's something that you need to take advantage of. And we have that hurricane kit up to date just to be on the safe side here as we're looking at things. But again, not turning logo red for this. If we turn it logo red for this system later on, it won't be for our area. It'll be for like Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. Again, not going to rule it out completely for them yet, but, Carolinas. But for our area, not a direct impact here. As the timeline gets going, I know it's still pretty early, but unless something just dramatically changes, unless these are just completely wrong here, and it's like the only, somehow this was like some really weak system. If it wasn't, even a hurricane, then it gets way closer. But even then, the patterns that allow it to turn. That's kind of what you'd have to watch maybe for up north. If it keeps getting further and further west, and eventually maybe it is an issue further up in toward the Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. But again, locally, just don't see it. Let's go ahead and switch on over here toward the graphics. As we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things here. Again, you see where Aaron is. It's way, way out there. I mean, even if it's not going to, but even if it did take that path, beeline toward Florida, it's still a week away or more. I mean, we'd have time to watch and prepare, but again, that's just not going to happen here with Aaron. Again, we'll watch it further up toward the north, but it's a tropical storm, minimal tropical storm right now. You saw it didn't even look all that greatly organized. You have a couple other areas that could develop that could kind of take the F name or the G name there on that list. We'll watch the Bay of Campeche because that could be an impact, closer toward Texas if, we got some moisture in there now. We had, of course, our storm back in the beginning of July there. It was not something that was really that much discussed at all. And then the remnants of it combined to cause that catastrophic, devastating flooding there, in central Texas, the hill country, and killed just so many. It's just heartbreaking to think about. I mean, it's just over a month ago, but it was something that really, it was already happening before everybody realized how bad it was, and over the Texas hill country. And that was from a remnant, combining here and just the overall pattern. So we'll watch that Bay of Campeche area just in case that were to do something up closer toward Texas. The models aren't forecasting here. Low chance of development there. You see further off of like Nantucket, another area, but it's a low chance of development. We're not too concerned about that. Aaron could be something, maybe they watch eastern Canada or something, because it's easier to have a storm, get up there because they're further out anyway. And we'll kind of look for that here. I will show you that. Let me switch over to another mode here. Bear with me. It's further out in the timeline. But you do see that TVCN, if you kind of, it may curve back further east, but if let's say it keeps going due north, then eventually that could be an issue up toward Canada or eastern Maine or something. But again, that's again not a local story. For our 62 counties, Aaron is not going to be a problem. For the local impacts here, local weather impacts, we do not need to worry here, except for waters will be a little higher in terms of the surf. But again, as we're tracking things here. We can't say that a lot of times, so let's say it when we can. I mean, I'm going to say that next week about another system that develops, we shall see. But that's kind of storyline there. I know we always try to be careful, and we are being careful further up because even, the guidance is not always so hidden even further up in the U.S., the continental U.S., but it's too early to rule it out for the Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Maine, including that as well. Canada, but for our area, that's what we're kind of talking about. Okay, so Aaron there, next name you see there, the F1 on the left, and then the G name, G1 on the left, and, that's Gabrielle there. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. So then you have Umberto, Imelda in 2019 we're watching locally as well. And then you have Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa. You kind of get the idea. We're watching Nestor there in 2019 as well here locally. But as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, you see Olga, Pablo, Rebecca. Kind of get the idea. Hopefully we don't get that far down the list, but so about one storm, 92 Andrew was late August, and we didn't have hardly any storms that year in terms of the number of storms, but that one storm, it only takes one as a mantra. And so we go ahead and say here, now we're starting to get on this roller coaster a little bit. We're starting to climb up August 13th, big anniversary, 21 years since Hurricane Charlie hitting there around Punta Gorda. I mean, that was my first, hurricane I remember as a kid. Then we had, just an onslaught there of hurricanes after that, Francis and Jean locally here having big impacts. And I mean, we had Ivan further out, and then the next year we had Dennis, and then, of course, nationally we're getting close to that 20-year anniversary of Katrina. So, Dennis was a panhandle thing, not really locally here. I mean, Western Panhandle more so than anything, but had some tornado warnings around. I remember seeing some of that coverage, but as we're looking, back and thinking about things there in the order timeline, but again, let me go ahead and show you what else we have here. Next 7 days in terms of that rainfall forecast. You see inches of rain here locally, and toward the North Florida counties, that'd be a little less on average in South Florida. Not too concerned about drought right now. More so towards South Florida. They still need some rain down there around Miami area. But, we're not seeing anything too crazy in this map. Clutter.com/radar gives an interactive look at things. And if you look real close toward the east on the right side of this map, you can kind of see some high rainfall values there on that 7-day forecast. And, that's where a lot of the moisture here in the overall pattern kind of is staying right now. I mean, as we're talking about with our expected recurvature, not a guarantee for areas further north, but expected recurvature of our storm system there, Tropical Storm Erin. That's kind of the overall storyline with the pressure pattern. Again, it's going to recurve away from us. Now, will it recurve away from the Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast? All of those still up for debate a little bit. But locally, not worried about it. But we'll watch further out in the tropics, maybe for something else in a couple weeks. We may have a different system that impacts our area. Some of the AI, our models are really picking up on that, and we need to watch for that. And one of those, other names on the list could be a big story, whether it's the F name or the G name, something like that, depending on what, normally there's going to be the F one and maybe the G one if we do have another one there. We're watching, we'll be tracking, but there's an area rise on for any tornado warning storms here locally. Again, no formal update late Thursday. Off from that, gearing up in case we do start getting busy here locally, but we're not going to be busy because of Erin here locally. Tropical Storm Erin is not an issue here locally, but we'll break in as needed for anything, obviously, and post about, any local warnings here as needed on Facebook and on Twitter/X. Now, 50% chance of rain on this Wednesday, and I have a few storms around. You see, it's warm. We have a heated advisory here to the water area. We're getting back into that again. And that's, that pattern, I mean, the heat here really around, and, it definitely has been hot. I mean, we'll take that, I guess, to over a tropical system, a powerful one or something like that for sure. I mean, week one, that kind of just cooled us off, provided a little rain, not overwhelming rain is one thing, but we've had way, way, way too many storms here lately. Again, I've said it a lot, not trying to jinx it, but Erin, not an issue here for 2025 locally, except for the higher, surf there for folks, but, and as we're looking toward the beaches. But again, we've had so many storms. I mean, you go back, you talk about tropical storms, and you say, well, we want a weak one. Well, one that was actually a big deal. After hurricane warning, wasn't a hurricane when it hit, but Elsa, I mean, forget about that one. A lot of people are forgetting about Idalia, which they shouldn't forget about Nancy. That was a big deal before Helene made things even, it was even worse. So, anyway, I mean, it's crazy. That's how many we've had, Debbie, but, of course, that gets forgotten too here because of, that's not the most populated area where I hit locally, right at the coast, but it was, it was really bad. Idalia was really bad. Debbie, bad, to some degree, and Helene, catastrophic, really, in the case in Western North Carolina as well. But, of course, Elsa was something that, it was kind of, a storyline. It was almost a hurricane hitting similar area. I mean, that's 4 in that area there. Oof, that's not an area that's been getting hit all that much over the years. I mean, going back last couple of decades until you had Elsa really come into the picture. I mean, Hermine hit further west. Oof, what an onslaught there. And let's hope that is over for a long time. I mean, Helene was a record breaker in so many ways, and that anniversary will be coming up next month. Idalia's anniversary later this month. Let's just hope we're, instead of, new storms to add to that, let's just talk about these old anniversaries and we go a long time before we have more trouble. May not, might have something in a couple weeks, but, again, Erin, not an issue for our local area, in terms of the direct land impacts. You see 95 on that Thursday, 96 on that Friday, going to be hot. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, taking those breaks there, and the like as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. 60% chance of rain on that Saturday here. starts to go up as we're looking toward that weekend. Some storms, maybe some strong ones will be around, a little cool with the XY because some areas will start getting those to cool you off earlier on. But see, 93, 94 still above average here. These are some toasty temperatures for sure in this period. Back to school, I mean, even, at this point, with the heat advisory in play, let's go ahead and mention it. Gotta be careful even in, phys ed there, and those physical education classes, football practices, with the heat advisory in play here for this Wednesday. We gotta be kind of careful here, drink plenty of water. Limit that, time there in direct sunlight. I'll kind of go over the tips there. The heat advisory does include Stark, Jacksonville, Gainesville, Waycross, Ocala, St. Augustine on this Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Heat index values of 106 to 110 expected. This isn't an excessive heat warning, like we were getting there when we had 100 or so on the board and 101 even, which is just crazy. But we're in a situation here. We had a bunch of them, but now kids are back in school. Routine's a little different. Football practice is going on from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you get this cooling downpour, it changes things. Humidity problem, but the temperature does go down some. But hot temperatures and high humidity may cause heat illnesses, so drink plenty of fluids. Stay in an air-conditioned room. Stay out of the sun there as much as you can anyway. And check up on relatives and neighbors. And to reduce the risk, during outdoor work, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration recommends scheduling frequent rest breaks in shaded or air-conditioned environments. Anyone overcome by heat should be moved to a cool, and shaded location. Heat stroke is an emergency. You call 911 in an emergency situation like that. But again, 106, 110 heat index values, that humidity combined with the heat today, a little bit higher than it's been. And with these type of temperatures, not exactly dropping. If the humidity values are up there, again, we have some more heat advisories. Let's hope we don't have another excessive heat warning. But, that was, it's a bigger deal, obviously. But high temperatures, high humidity may cause those heat illnesses. Obviously, alert weather we're getting, we had that first ever 100-degree reading there, Tampa, earlier on this summer. It's been hot. That can be deadly, obviously. Air conditioner really does help there compared to where we used to be with that, though, over the years. Again, we're just going to continue to track things, continue to monitor things here as the situation does move along. As we're just trying to give you guys the very latest, obviously. We're just trying to keep you informed. As we're just updating you guys. You do see the rain chances start dropping next Tuesday. Looks a little less rainy. It's still warm, still hot out there. A little lower on the temperature in the morning, maybe. Not quite as much humidity, but that's the 20th next week there on that Tuesday. And, as we're looking at things, or I'm sorry, on that Tuesday, that'd be the 19th. I'm getting my dates mixed up a little bit since we're, we ended the night here with this. That would be the 19th as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So the 19th is next Tuesday. We should start to cool down there for sure as we're getting further out in toward that timeline, we're going to be getting into September, October. We had the snow in January. All that snow in Georgia. So eventually we're going to cool down, but we don't want it too cold. We don't want it too hot. Seems like lately it's been either too hot or, sometimes too cold and not really just right, which is unfortunate. Makes it harder to want to stay outside for hours on end. But, and you do, you're especially if you're vulnerable, your skin, and make sure you have sunscreen on. Some folks, like myself, if you get sunburnt, it just depends on, where you are with everything. Because if you get a really bad sunburn, that can lead to problems down the line, or if you're vulnerable. But sometimes it's okay to get out of the sun some because it helps you out, but don't overdo it. As we're going ahead and looking at things, as you're tracking things here, gotta not overdo it because of that high heat index value situation as well. Again, nothing overwhelming here locally next 7 days really. We'll watch the storm chances in case we get a rogue situation where we start, sometimes we haven't really had it too much so far this summer, and it could start to happen eventually, not saying there's anything in the model saying this, but, sometimes, we'll get a rogue spin on a quick tornado warning or something, and you have to jump in just all of a sudden. So just, not saying we're seeing anything like that, but some severe thunderstorm warning definitely possible here we're starting to get kind of, we should start to eventually, once we cool down, lose some of this moisture, we'll get out of the storm pattern, but we're still in it for a little while longer, as we're tracking things. So we haven't had a whole bunch of warnings lately, but just always got to be paying attention here again. We'll break in if needed. We're always on for tornado warning storms here locally, but that's to pretty much do it, I think, for tonight. Again, we'll be back late Thursday with another update. Or, no, not late Thursday. I just said that. We're off here, obviously, late Thursday. But we'll be back next Tuesday, late Tuesday, early Wednesday, with another formal update unless we need to break back in earlier, obviously. So, again, we're going to make sure we're watching things. If we need to break in earlier, we will. We're here for you guys. Saturday looks like the stormiest in terms of the coverage, but sometimes, it's a situation where you have the storm where you're adding a lower rain chance. So you just never know. You just never know in these type of situations. Again, above average temperatures, though, it's going to be toasty. Heat advisory in effect, so keep that in mind. That's one of the good things about doing these updates later on, because, they see these pretty late. I mean, they see up to the 11 o'clock news, 11:50 on that Tuesday. So, there's drawbacks to doing them at this time, too, but there are good things. See the latest models, have more confidence that Erin is not going to be a threat here. Tropical storm Erin is not going to be a local threat directly, land areas or anything like that. Some high, surf and the like, but that's the extent of it here locally. We are not concerned about Erin, but maybe in a couple weeks we'll have to be concerned about something else. Again, we see the heat advisory come out, the statement from the Jacksonville office, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., so but elevated those heat index values today. So be careful. We'll be watching things. We'll be tracking things. I hope you have a great night. Just stay safe out there. That new routine, maybe for some, with back to school, with the different traffic patterns in terms of, that build up there and, obviously the school, buses out and about and all those excited children there at the bus stops. I'm sure everyone's excited for their first day of classes there and now, getting back in that routine here and the like. So hopefully everything goes well for everybody to stay safe out there, as we're tracking things here. We're just going to keep on monitoring things. We'll watch there and, it probably will become a powerful hurricane out there. And, may get some headlines because of that. And they might need to watch further up to the north, Mid-Atlantic, North Carolina included in that. I know some people don't really count the Carolinas, especially South Carolina in that, but the Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast still need to watch it. Our area, just about high surf. We're not concerned about that. I like to say that when we can see it because we've had so many lately where we can't see them. A lot of times they end up coming this way. Things shift. So it's been since like 2016. And things just end up getting worse and worse. And even if it shifts way to the west, it should still stay way to the east of us here with Erin. With the RE name on the list there, tropical cyclone here, tropical storm Erin. But there's just so many here. I want to make sure we say it when we can say it, that we're not concerned about that one here for our local area. But just always have that hurricane kit up to date. Things can still change for other systems that could develop in a hurry. So be aware of that here, as we get toward, the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Idalia. We may be watching or even having to deal with something here locally. So we shall see. Have a great night. Stay safe. Try to enjoy things here. It is hot, so be cognizant of that. Be cognizant of the lightning as well. When thunder roars, go indoors. Again, have a great night.